It's amazing. A lot of people think they see a business and they're like, I can do that. Well, yes, you probably can, but you have to be willing to do what it takes. Framing evolves. You understand it because you've experienced. A lot of people that have never been in don't really understand the process of custom framing.
Welcome back to another episode of Bottled Up, where we pop open the stories and lives of local business owners, artists, and unique characters. In this episode, we talk with Butch Simpson of Negrado's Gallery, and he takes us on his journey from the military and his humble beginnings to owning a successful custom framing shop and art gallery. Butch recounts how he found his way to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the ups and downs of getting his business started, the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and how he and his team at Negrado's help clients restore their damaged and thought-lost artwork and cherished family paintings. Plus, Butch discusses the gallery's plans for the future, including their marketing evolution into a more robust social media strategy and expanding their online reach to a growing market. So grab a Pepsi and get ready for a fantastic conversation bubbling with storytelling, business tips, and art restoration with Butch Simpson on Bottled Up. All right, Mr. Butch Simpson, co-owner of Negrado's Framing Art, thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
I kind of wanted to have you on a little bit because not only do we do business together as far as framing art is concerned, you do a lot locally with charities and you're one of the people who actually got us reinvigorated in the chamber. So I kind of wanted to have you on and kind of pick your brain a little bit about being a local business owner on the coast, starting a business, because I know you guys started in 2004. You purchased Negrado's in 2004, but just kind of wanted to get a little bit of your history and kind of see what your mindset is as far as the future is concerned, as far as business owners on the coast and ways that people can, if they have a dream of opening up their own business, what would be the best way to do that? I know that you have some really good tips and tricks for all that kind of stuff. So thanks for coming on. And I'd like to kind of start with a little bit of your history. So Mr. Butch, where did you grow up? How did you make it to the coast?
Okay. Well, I was born in Connecticut. My dad was in the Army. He was actually in France when I was born. Moved to France for a little while, moved all around, all over. My parents divorced when I was young, and we moved around a little bit more, settled mostly in Tennessee, joined the Army when I was 18, left Tennessee, spent 12 of my 20 years overseas. Last duty station, of course, was here at the CB base. I was an instructor there. And after about 6 months, my wife at the time and I decided that, we were pretty much done with the military and all the moving. Our kids were getting to the point where they needed some stability. So we talked about it and decided we would retire here and bought a house and started getting involved in the community even before I retired.
Okay. So Butch, what was your job in the military? What did you do in the Army?
I went in as an electrician. I stayed as an electrician for about 10 years, 12 years. And then once you get promoted to E6 in the Army, you become a construction engineer supervisor, which you have to learn or know how to supervise carpentry, electrical, and plumbing, which is why that's how I was able to instruct carpentry at the CB base.
Got it. So you basically were like a project manager, right?
Yeah. We did projects, like most of my deployments. We would go somewhere and build schools or medical clinics, roads, drill water wells, something, nation building type missions.
Got it.
And
okay.
As I went up in the ranks, I went from being the grunt doing all the dirty work to being the guy that gets to stand in one place and make sure everything is being done at the same time.
Had the cleanest hard hat.
Cleanest hard hat and the tiredest brain.
That's right. That's right. Lots of meetings involved. I have a really close friend of mine who's in the construction business, and he's constantly meeting with customers and having meetings with his team and stuff. So I understand that mindset. Well, tell me a little bit about. So you retired. You decided to settle on the coast, and I guess was it just the luck of the draw of coming to the CB base?
Yeah, I was actually on a deployment and they were closing down all the bases in Panama, giving the Panama Canal back to the Panamanians and taking the military presence out of the country of Panama. And so they had a surplus of people, and we kind of had a little pick and choose. They told me that I was going to be an instructor, and they wanted me to go to Fort Leonard Wood, which is in Missouri. And I'm not a big hunter or fisher, so there's nothing there for me to do. So I asked and was lucky enough to be able to come to Gulfport because my wife at the time, her family lived in New Orleans. And I thought, well, that's pretty close. You know, we can be close. They can see the kids and grandkids and everything.
Right. As far as all the places that you saw during your military career, what was your favorite stop on that journey?
That's tricky. Europe, I spent 4 years in Germany. And the good thing about that was I got to travel to pretty much all the European countries. I mean, like here, we talk about taking a weekend trip to New Orleans. Well, you're in Europe, you can take a weekend trip to Paris, weekend trip to Amsterdam, Berlin.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that. So that was, seeing more of the world, I guess, was when I was stationed in Europe. But the 6 years I spent in Panama was really nice. The climate, the people, and the mission. We did of the 6 years I was there, I was probably deployed 3 of them all over Central and South America and the Caribbean doing the nation building stuff I mentioned before. So that kind of gave you some personal satisfaction for what you were doing.
Well, Butch, is that where you learned how to speak Spanish?
Well, my ex-wife was from Colombia. We met in Germany. And I actually started learning my Spanish to protect myself when her and her family got together. I wanted to know if they were talking about me.
Yeah, that's a good reason to learn, man.
Yeah, but it definitely, when we deployed, like we'd go to El Salvador, we'd have members of the El Salvadorian military that would work with us, and the El Salvadorian communities, the parents of the place we were building a school at would come out and help as much as they could. And it was always hard to try to find a translator. So I started picking out construction terms, learning how to say them, and it just kind of went from there. If you want to learn a foreign language, you have to be immersed in that language.
Right.
You have to force yourself to speak it, live with the laughs for when you mispronounce it. We had a babysitter that I was trying to tell her she had the day off, and apparently what I told her, she was fired.
Oh, God.
My wife at the time, she got it squared away, and then we had a big laugh about it. Everything was fine there. But, so the Spanish, it's having advantages is kind of what that is. Anytime you can better yourself, through education, through, hard work, whatever, just being able to speak 2 languages, it's come in handy many times. And I am by no means what I would consider a fluent Spanish speaker, but I can usually help out if somebody needs help. And you see that, you go somewhere and you see somebody that doesn't speak English, and you're able to ask them a few questions and help them out a little bit.
Right.
And that's kind of what I told my kids. All 5 of them are pretty much fluent, if not enough where they can, help each other out and get by, because it's just the world. Yeah, we've got all the different countries and all the different things, but I mean, we're all in this together, and we really do need to help each other out.
Well, family is what brought you here, right? So it came down to you had family in New Orleans. So when did you decide to get into the framing business? Kind of explain how that came about, and explain kind of how you decided that you made that decision to buy Negrados.
Well, we bought a house. The across the street neighbors were the Negrado.
Okay.
Older couple. We kind of adopted them as our grandparents. My children, would go over there to aggravate them like all grandkids aggravate their grandparents. I retired in May of 2003, but I was on like terminal leave and other things. So I was still on active duty until August. So my first thought was, my wife had stayed home with the kids forever. Maybe I would give that a try. That lasted about 4 weeks. I decided right away I was not a stay-at-home dad. Shout out to all the mothers and fathers that are able to stay at home with their kids all day long. It drove me crazy. I had to get out.
Yep.
So I went to work at Lowe's and thought I had found my perfect job, staying in construction, but in climate control. And so I thought that was where I would end up doing the rest of my time on this planet. And around October, November, I was cleaning my yard. The Negrados were cleaning their yard. And so we always would stop and talk and everything. And I went over and I talked to Miss Sue, and she said, I'm thinking about selling the gallery. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So I went in, talked to my wife at the time, and, we decided neither one of us have an art background. Neither one of us really had much of a business background, but we thought, why not give it a shot? So in January of '04, we purchased it. All the paperwork and everything was done. And by the grace of God, we've been able to keep it open for this January will be 20 years.
It's incredible, Butch. Okay, so I've noticed the many times that I've been in y'all's gallery, I've noticed that there's certificates on the wall for framing. Explain to me kind of how that works and how you have to kind of be a certified framer. I don't understand how that works.
Well, like I said, I had no framing background. Of course, I had construction, and putting wood together is putting wood together. Is how
Right.
our mindset. There's a molding supplier that we use, Larson Jewell, that at that time they might still do it. I'm not 100% sure, but they had a 1-week framers class, which they taught you the very basics of framing and the very basics of running a frame shop. So I went to Chicago for a week in February because I didn't want to miss Mardi Gras to go to the one in Atlanta, because they thought I was crazy to come to Chicago for the class. And after that, that's when I found out there is actually an association, the Professional Picture Framers Association, that's been around for as long as I can remember. And they have a certification program. They have a certified picture framer and they have a master certified picture framer.
Okay.
And to be a CPF, you take a test, written test, and it took me the test. You get 3 hours and 30 minutes. I left at 3 hours and 25 minutes, and I was the first one to leave.
Oh, my goodness.
You basically, the test covers just about every aspect of framing. There's a council, the Fine Arts Council, that kind of sets the standards on what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. And they've got, I think it was like 12 books that you basically have to know because that's what the test comes from.
Okay.
It deals with preservation and conservation of materials. I mean, some stuff that you're doing, you don't need to go full on museum type framing where it's going to last for 1,000,000 years.
Right.
But there are some things that you have, we've been in the last year or so, we've had some naturalization papers from the early 1800s that have come in. We've had family history documents that have come in. I mean, just letters from the Civil War and Revolutionary War that have been framed. And those are the things that you really need to know how to preserve. And that's kind of where the CPF comes into it. There's different mounting techniques. There's different glasses, different mat boards, different things you do to the frame based on what it is that you're wanting to do.
Okay. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, you're framing history. So you kind of have to kind of follow a protocol.
Right. And the thing is, like I said, I tell customers when they come in, like, look, we're not going to let you make a mistake. We're going to tell you what the recommended standard is, but we're going to work with you. We'll work with your budget. We'll work with what your thing is, whatever you want to do, however you want the finished framing package to look, that's what we're going to do. You've been in there many, many times. Your mom has been in there and, worked with Nancy and Joseph and myself. And you understand it because you've experienced. A lot of people that have never been in don't really understand the process of custom framing.
Yes. Let's walk someone through. If they were to come into the gallery, kind of let's walk someone through what it would be like to get to custom frame something. I mean, the process it's a lot of fun, honestly, because you get to kind of visualize, but it's even when you visualize, it's not exactly how you think it's going to be until you see it.
Right. I had a customer come in yesterday afternoon, had 2 old paintings that they just wanted to freshen up. So for that type of thing, we just pulled different framing samples, and the corner samples that we use, they're about 6 inches in it's a chevron. It's I don't know, top of a triangle. I can't exactly know what to say, but about 6 inches. And you just take that and, like you said, you place it on the frame, on the artwork, and you kind of look at it, and you do have to kind of visualize. These were 16 by 20s. Well, it had like a little 6 inch. So you have to be able to visualize what that's going to look like all the way around the picture. Sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't. If you're bringing in something that needs to be matted, and that's mat's a paper board that's placed around the artwork, serves a couple purposes. It adds a little to the design element. You can add some colors to it. You can, things like that. But it also acts as preservation on it because it helps support the artwork in the framing package, and it creates a little airspace to keep the glazing, the glass or plexiglass that you decide to use, off of the artwork, because you don't really want it to touch, especially in this humidity around here. You get a little condensation inside the framework, then it can cause the art to stick to the glass if it's in direct contact with it.
Yep. One of the things that I really like, especially with y'all shop, is the attention to detail and the level of customization that you can do. If anybody has anything special that they want to preserve and hang on the wall. And I really like the attention to detail that Nancy, and I know that your son Joseph is gonna take over her place, but it always makes me feel good to know that I'm being taken care of. And I know that's kind of how you run things, Butch. You kind of always are, the customer is always the one that you want to treat the way that you would want to be treated.
Exactly, and that's what I try to tell Joseph and Nancy, and even behind the scenes, Carlton. You've seen him, but you probably maybe spoken to him 2 or 3 times, because he's a guy that sits in the back, and his attention to detail. He's got 30 years in the framing industry. I don't have to worry about the quality of his work because his standards are as high, if not higher, than mine.
Right.
And so I know that, once Nancy and Joseph come up with a design and the way that they want it to look, Carlton's going to make it look that way. And, custom framing is not an inexpensive thing to do, but it's not a totally outside of anybody's budget as well. We'll design what we think looks best. We'll figure out the pricing. And if it's outside of the budget, we'll try to, substitute different things to get it within the budget that you can afford or had set aside for that project.
Yeah. Once you start doing custom framing, it becomes kind of like an addiction almost.
Well, it's a healthy addiction, and we appreciate it.
The area that we live in just has so many good local artists. And I know that's another thing that you guys do very well, is you always have local art pieces come in and you showcase local artists and their works in your gallery. So tell a little bit about how you find new local artists and some of the local artists that you decide, like what makes you decide to pick something up? Where do you go to find new local artists?
Okay, well, we'll go back a little bit for how it began. When we purchased the gallery from the Negrados, it was 20 years ago. The online marketplace has definitely shifted the way that things are done from back in 20 years ago to right now. But when we purchased it, the Negrados had some prints that you could go and get online because it was a little bit easier to come into the shop and purchase. I'll call them poster prints. They weren't necessarily high-end art, but it was, stuff that would help decorate your house or things like that.
Right.
Well, with the online things that they have now, anybody can hit order on the computer. So we kind of started, after the first 3 or 4 years, we started going out to the local artists. A lot of them are not business people. They have the urge and the desire to create, and that's what they want to do. They don't have online presence, so they don't really have a way to get their artwork out to the public. And so we decided, if you can order it online from one of the print warehouses, then there was no need for me to give space in the gallery for that. So that's when we started working with the local artists. And we have originals and we have prints from local artists all over the coast, from Ocean Springs to the Bay. We have a few from the Hattiesburg area. And we just try to, let them have a spot. And we change it every 2 or 3 months. We freshen it up. We bring new artwork in from the same artist, or we bring new art in. The way that it works primarily is an artist now will send us examples of their work.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have to go out looking for them anymore. And it's all about, as you well know, businesses evolve. And as you grow and things like that, you kind of change the way that you do things, which you have to do if you're going to survive.
That's right.
When we first started, nobody really knew what was going on. They knew the Negrados because they were, fixtures in the Biloxi community for 50 years, but they didn't know us at the gallery. So we would go out and actively look for local artists. Now we kind of they come to us our deciding factor on whether we bring art in is it something that our clientele is looking for?
Got it.
We work with designers. We work with interior decorators. They tell us kind of what they're looking for. We listen to the clients that come in and say, I need something to go in my bathroom. I need something to go in the hallway or in the living room. We listen to what they want to do, and we look for art that can fill those needs.
Well, I think that where we live, the coast especially, I don't know if it's quite unique. I feel like it is with the level of art that we have going on around us, but with all the festivals. I mean, Peter Anderson, to name one. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of artisan work going on the coast, I feel like. And I guess I just never really thought about it until I kind of grew up a little bit and saw the level that it was. But I don't know if it happens like this that much anywhere else. And as far as a coastal atmosphere being this close, I know the New Orleans has a lot, but I just feel like it's really unique to where we live, and that we're kind of lucky to have that down here, because art seems to be something that gets kind of brushed aside when it comes to school and sports and that kind of thing. It seems to be like the last thing that everybody looks at.
And, we do have the level of talent here on the coast is amazing.
Yes.
I have been numerous places around the country and around the world and have seen art. And, most places that I've seen might have one or two, maybe three artists that are, good and, are doing well. But here on the coast, like you said, it just seems like we have 30 or 40 artists that are just world-class artists that
yes.
You can put their work up against anybody. Negrados is blessed that we were able to secure some. We by no means have all of them that are here on the coast, but it's unique. I think the community helps breed the ability for artists to do that.
So it's almost as if the artists are feeding what the community wants. Like they're simpatico with one another.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. Because you can have great artists, but if they're not being supported by their community, then they don't have the time to create. I mean, unfortunately, we all have to figure out some way of making money to survive.
Right.
Sometimes that takes the creative juices out of your body, or you're just too tired to do it. So I think being that our community supports the artist the way that they do allows the artist to have the freedom to create because they can make some money and survive.
Right. It doesn't force them just to make stuff to make money. It forces them to make something that they want to make.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's when it's at its purest, is when they're making something that they want to make, not making something that they know will fit a demographic.
Exactly. It's the creative side of the brain is well away from the business side of the brain. It's two totally different mindsets, two totally different thought processes.
Well, speaking of the business side of the brain, so when you took over in 2004, how hard was it to maintain a business? I mean, you've been doing this for almost 20 years next year. And I know that taking a leap of faith with some of the business owners that I've talked to, they're basically, they're betting on everything, they're putting it all on red. So how hard was it to those first few years to get it up and rolling, to get the gallery up and rolling?
Probably the hardest thing that I have ever done in my life.
Wow.
It's amazing. A lot of people think they see a business and they're like, I can do that. Well, yes, you probably can, but you have to be willing to do what it takes. The first year that we were in business in 2004, because we opened up under us on January 15th. So pretty much the entire year we had it. I don't know exactly, but I'd say that the rent on our business was 25% of our gross sales at that time. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take out your material cost. And then you have to take out your payday. I mean, there were a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwich dinners during that first year.
Yeah.
We didn't have any employees. It was just my wife at the time and myself working. So we didn't have to worry about, and that's another thing, when you hire somebody, you have their livelihood, have to kind of be concerned with that.
Right.
You don't want to hire somebody and 6 months later go out of business. because then you're not only disrupting your family, you're disrupting their family.
Right. That's a big responsibility.
And you know, the sleepless nights, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, wondering where the rent money was going to be coming from, you know, how you were going to pay your suppliers, getting the work done to the standard that you wanted it done. And then, of course, 2005, we were rolling. Things were coming along great. We were being known for what we were doing. And then in August, we had that little visitor, Katrina, that just totally
changed the world.
Everybody's mind. We had already done twice, January to August, we had already done twice what we had done the year before. So we thought, okay, this might be going. And then we wake up that Tuesday morning. My wife and I and the family had went to Montgomery, and we look on the news and it says, you know, Biloxi's gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, what do you do? So then you cry about it, you pray about it, you think about it, and you come to realization. And then you find out 2 or 3 days later, it's not gone. And then you're like, okay, well, what do we do? How do we rebuild? How do we keep this going? Do we want to keep this going?
There's a lot of choices to, you know, because y'all are just getting your feet under you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we barely a year and a half into this journey, and a left turn like you have never seen.
How bad did Katrina mess up the shop, Butch?
We were blessed. You know, we had that was when we were over by the mall.
Yeah, on Eisenhower.
Right. And, you know, we had a built-up roof, which is basically concrete slab, tar paper, tar, and pebble, for those that don't know what a built-up roof is. Well, most of the built-up was blown off, so the water came down through the slabs of concrete. Luckily, no customer artwork was damaged whatsoever.
Wow.
The artwork that we did have that was damaged belonged to the gallery, so we sold it to the insurance company, which helped. The materials and stuff, the building itself, it didn't take water from any of the floods or anything. It all came from above. So we didn't have some of the nastiness that the businesses that took the groundwater from, you know, we didn't have that sludge, didn't get into the gallery. So that cleanup was pretty quick and easy. And 2 weeks, I was sitting here at the house. I had lucky enough to get power back, and I was watching the news and everything. And they said Mississippi Power was reporting that if you were able to have power, you should have power. Or I went back and started looking at the gallery, and there was a little wire that had broken loose, but wasn't like dangling. So they didn't know that. They were able to turn our power back on at the gallery 2 weeks after the storm.
That's incredible.
It was amazing. And so we were able to, clients that I knew, I would run into them at the water stations and the food stations, or just driving around or doing whatever. And they'd be like, you know, I've got this art that you guys did for me. It got wet. What can we do? And I'm like, look, I got power at the gallery. Bring it by. We'll let it start drying out. We'll start doing what we can do. And so, I mean, I had art all over the gallery, all over my house, everywhere, starting it to the drying process to try to see what we could do. I went to one of our good clients' homes. We met up, and she said, hey, can you come, you know, look at some of this stuff and tell me what you can fix? And we were able, I showed her one thing, and I said, you know, this can be fixed. This is what it will look like. You know, it won't be perfect, but it was some pastels of her children. And when I said that, she said, well, come on. And we went out to her trash pile and was able to pull a few more pieces out that, you know, they weren't back perfect, but they were, you know, sentimental, irreplaceable things that we were able to save. And that's kind of what it was like 4 months after the storm.
My mom had just finished a house. It was my grandfather. Her dad was an architect, and his masterpiece was basically going to be a house that he designed and built for her. And it was on 2nd Street, and they finished, I think, maybe 40 days before Katrina hit. And whenever she went back after the storm to look, and it was just it was a slab. It had pushed everything off. You know, and I think that my grandfather never really got over that. He, you know, and it's all the stuff that you can't replace, you know, like you're saying, like all those heirlooms that you have framed up, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's now it's become a mindset in her psyche that, you know, if she loses something, she just thinks that, oh, I just lost that in Katrina, you know, like that's kind of where she dumps everything into like the lost pile. Right. You know, so, well, That's a really big hurdle to jump across in the first 2 years of opening up a business that you're trying to get your feet under you. Was Nancy with you the whole time?
No, Nancy and Carlton both came once Williams Gallery, the founders, the owners, the Williamsons, when they passed, Nancy left the Williams Gallery family, and she worked in a couple different places, and then she came to us about 13, 14 years ago.
Okay.
So that would have been
2010.
Yeah, 29, 2010, something like that. Her and Carlton both came to the gallery, and we were blessed to be able to get them there. They're an amazing pair, and
Absolutely.
the knowledge that they have, and we learn from them. And going through the certification classes, being a member of PPFA, going to the conventions and the trade shows and the workshops, framing evolves. For example, 40 years ago, everything had cardboard put behind it because it was the best thing at the time, lightweight, inexpensive, stiff, it protected. But now we realize that cardboard is one of the worst things you can do to put behind your artwork because of the acids that leach out of the cardboard itself. There's other boards that we use now for backing boards. And, those kind of little changes and stuff, taking the knowledge that Nancy and Carlton have had, that they've gained, doing this every day for so many years, and changing up the stuff to meet with the new standards and the new must-dos that the council and the different associations put out. It's kind of been a good mix between the two of them. I've always been kind of a quiet overachiever. I don't really, do it for the bragging rights. I do it because it's a challenge to me. When I found out that there was a certification for a picture framer, I'm like, yes, I will do that.
Yes.
When I find out, there's things that you can do, I'm going to go out and do it just for it's a game I play against myself. I don't necessarily do it for any kind of public accolades, but it's like, okay, don't put a challenge in front of me like that, because I'm going to do my best to achieve it.
It's like you said, quietly doing it is the trick.
Yeah, I mean, it's the CPF, the things that I do. I've done stuff, museum level mountings. We've done stuff for Beauvoir, for the Jeff Davis Presidential Library there, that we've had to do to the standards to keep stuff from being destroyed. But that is pricey. That's expensive. It's a lot of time, and the materials that you have to use are pricey. But and 85-90% of the stuff that comes in the gallery, they don't need that level, and that's okay. But I like being able to say, yes, I know how to do that. I know how to do the museum mounting. I know how to do the preservation and conservation mounting. I can do that if that's what you need.
Yeah. So it's like you have the all ends of the spectrum when it comes to framing. I mean, it's an all encompassing thing.
That's what we try to do. And hopefully we're doing okay. And based on the 20-year history, I think we're doing something right.
I agree, Butch. Well, what's in the future for Negrados as far as, what kind of new things are you wanting to try to implement, and where do you think y'all are going to branch out in the next 5 to 10 years?
We've mentioned Nancy many times in this conversation here that we're having. She's been doing this for 42 years, and unfortunately, she's retiring at the end of September. And so my son, Joseph, who you mentioned, has come in, and what he's looking to do is basically bring my old self into the 21st century.
Got it.
Social media is huge. We're trying to do more stuff and just get the word out as to what we can do and how we can do it. We've talked about opening up other locations and things like that, but that's a rough animal, and it's kind of where we're at right now. We frame for people from state line to state line, from other states, that people have come through, especially the military. They've come through. We've done framing for them. They like what we do. They move to their next duty station. They send us stuff in the mail and say, hey, can you guys frame this up for us, just like you did this piece or that piece? So I don't think that expanding locations is something that we might do. That's something that Joseph and I will talk about as he gets more into the day-to-day operations. And, the long-term goal is to basically turn this over to him at some point when I feel he's ready.
Got it.
And I'm ready to stop. Like I said, I'm kind of old. I'm not quite 60 yet, but I'm getting there. And I don't want to do this forever, but I'm in I'm not ready to go yet.
Yeah, I know. I kind of inherited whenever I came into this professionally in 2010. I've been in it almost my whole life since I was 12. But when I got out of school, graduated from college, and started my career, there were a lot of things that had been done a certain way, and this is just the way it's always been. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, right?
And I fully understand that feeling. I know exactly what you're saying.
I mean, when I'm talking about 2010, we're still using 3-ply tickets on invoicing for all the trucks, right?
I love it.
So I realized, I said, listen, we gotta make some improvements here. We don't have to go like, light speed, but we gotta take some baby steps into, the electronic age. So we went into handhelds, the receipt printers and like the bags, like FedEx has. And then we went, and that was the first iteration. And then in 2010, in April, we went to a all cloud-based system, where now they're using iPhones and iPads to perform their duties out in the market. So, I mean, it moves slow, but, I do know that you guys have a really good, y'all's website is good, which is always nice, because if you don't have a website, you don't have that's basically your presence. That's your landing page for any social media post that you do, right? You want people coming to your website and seeing what your capabilities and who you are as a company. And y'all kind of have that down already. And we didn't even have a website, really. It was a website, but it didn't showcase anything, so we had a lot of work to do. And we've done a lot in the last, 13 years. So, I mean, I think I'm excited to see what Joseph has in mind and what he wants to do, because, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, because that's where everything's headed now, as far as social media and that kind of thing. So,
yeah. So, I mean, we're going to continue to keep up with the standards, the changes that are made. Like I said, it's a council. There's actually a guild of framers that is based primarily in Europe, but it's branching out more here in the United States, and they are really big at trying to make sure that we're doing. It's kind of almost similar to what a doctor goes through. Do no harm.
Right.
That's kind of what we look at when we go to frame somebody's piece, whether it's the Mona Lisa, or it's what your little daughter Mona painted in kindergarten art class. It's whatever the art is, it's special to you, and that's what we want to try to do, is make sure that we keep it.
That's right.
We frame kids art all the time, and we treat it just like priceless pieces that come in. It might not have much monetary value, but the sentimental value just is priceless.
Absolutely. Well, Butch, if someone wanted to find out more about your business and wanted to come in and get something framed, where would they go as far as your website and social media is concerned, and your physical address? Where would they come?
Negrato'sGallery.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Not 100% sure, but I'm sure if you just search Negratos, it will pop up. But those are the two main presence. We have all of the other ones, the Pinterest and the things like that, but we're still trying to figure out exactly how to use all of those.
Right.
The physical address is 9036A Carl Leggett Road in Gulfport. It's right off of Cowan, in between the two bridges on the island. But the city of Gulfport, you can't enter and exit onto Cowan. They don't want more traffic jams there as people try to come in. The phone number at the gallery is 228-388-8822. And we're there Monday to Friday, 10 to 5, and Saturday, 10 to 3.
Well, if anybody needs some custom framing done, or if you have something special that you want to keep forever in your home and create a picture that you can look at every day, I highly recommend going and seeing Butch and getting it done at Negratos. So, I mean, Butch, I really appreciate your time today and kind of talking us through your journey and and giving us some insight on what it's like to own a custom framing shop and just be a business owner on the coast. I look forward to seeing you soon, my man.
I appreciate it, Andrew, and thanks for what you guys are doing. And this is a service that the community needs, and it was my pleasure to come and talk with you today.
Absolutely. Butch Simpson and his skilled team in Negrados are artists at what they do. Do yourself a favor and go check out everything these highly skilled framers and restorers can do. Plus, be sure to check out all the local art handpicked and selected by Butch at the gallery. Again, thanks for listening, and until next time, go support local businesses and artists. They are the brushstrokes and painted colors that make the Mississippi Gulf Coast so wonderful, prosperous, and unique. Thanks for listening to the Bottled Up Podcast. Want us to deliver this show into your email inbox as they drop? Want to tell us about how you like the show? Or you want to tell us about a Gulf Coast restaurant or bar you would like us to spotlight in upcoming episodes? Email Morgan at mwheeler, WHEELER, at abevinc.com. That's ABEVINC.com. Want to know more about Allen Beverages and how we work with our clients, partners, and vendors? Check out allenbeverages.com. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn and Deep Fried Studios.